There are some rules, known as the Hardy-Weinberg principles, that apply to population genetics. A population must be infinitely large. Let's say you're flipping a coin 5 times. It's not unlikely you'll either have more heads or tails, but if you flip it 1,000 times, you get closer to the 50-50 chance that we know comes with flipping a coin. This population must also not be undergoing evolution or natural selection. There must be no migration, which means nobody's coming or leaving. The final rule is that all members of the species must breed. They all must breed randomly, and they all have to have the same amount of kids. To understand population genetics, one must understand the meaning behind genotypes and phenotypes. A genotype refers to one's genetic makeup, while a phenotype is what's expressed and shows up in an individual's appearance, and that's what's typically seen. Let's pretend we're looking at a made-up species known as species X, where you can either roll your tongue or you can not roll your tongue, and the allele for rolling your tongue is dominant. An allele is one form of a gene. We will have a capital R for tongue rolling allele and a lowercase r for not being able to roll a tongue. This leaves 3 different possibilities, which are capital R, lowercase r, and 2 lowercase r's. As long as you have a capital R, you're able to roll your tongue. We know that there are 3 possibilities, but we don't know the frequency of the genotype in a population. The frequency is the percentage of something available in a population. Our 2 equations are p squared plus 2pq plus q squared equals 1 and p plus q equals 1. And p is the frequency of one allele in a population, and q is the frequency of another allele. Let's look at p plus q equals 1. If we're looking at the rolling tongue example, there are 2 types of alleles. This means the 2 types of alleles must make up 100% of the population, which can be represented with decimals. In our next equation, p squared, which is homozygous dominant, plus 2pq, which is heterozygous, plus q squared, which is homozygous recessive, equals 1. And remember that you always want to find q first. Also, if you add them all up, it'll equal 100% of the population. Let's say you have 200 members of species X. Tongue rolling is dominant like before, and 32 of them aren't able to roll their tongue. You have to find the percent frequency of q. So 32 over 200 equals 16 over 100, which is 16%. We now know q squared is 0.16. If we find the square root of that, you know q is 0.4, and if p plus q is 1 and q is 0.4, that means that p is 0.6. Plug it into the phenotype equation, you get 0.36 plus 0.48 plus 0.16 equals 1, which means 36% of the population is homozygous dominant, 48% is heterozygous, and 16% is homozygous recessive.